So again, we're going to cover a whole bunch of different elements of safety. Air support. Everybody in the room probably has seen air support on fires or worked with air support in one capacity or another. So we've got two different kinds. We've got fixed wing and we've got rotary wing. So fixed wing is like bird dogs, air tankers. Has anybody not seen them in action on a fire? No, everybody has. So everybody knows the bird dog will make the pass with the sirens, and then the tankers will do their drops. Okay, rotary wing, as an engine boss, you may be asked by your task force leader if there's rotary wing working in close proximity to you to identify targets. That happens quite frequently. Like say, for example, you're working next to a house, there's a tree on fire, and there's a heli overhead. Your task force leader might say, hey, whatever your call sign is, do you have any targets in the area? And then they'll relay it up the chain of command so you can actually do that. So as a engine boss, you're more likely to be working around these. You may see these early in the incident, but more likely for extended operations, working with the rotary wing. Again, so just some basic safety considerations. You can find those in your IRPG. Clear the area, okay? You don't want to be caught with a drop over top. The water tanks themselves, 150 gallons of water on board. Obviously, you don't want to be underneath that when it strikes, so make sure you clear the area, and you need to communicate that out. And remember, as an engine boss, you're communicating that out to your entire crew, right? Kim mentioned the ICS chain of command, okay? As engine boss, there's 3 people below you, and you're their single supervisor, so it's up to you to make sure that they are aware of anything that may impact their safety.
And just working on, just to add into that air support, and I'll let the experts correct me if I'm wrong, but when I'm looking at if I'm on scene and we're early in the incident and we're getting requests or we're asking for air support, is kind of understanding a little bit of what their capabilities are. And so for me, we've got a fixed wing that's coming in. That's more so like a dozer. It's kind of putting out in front of the fire. It's slowing it down for us. It's allowing us that buffer of safety to be able to get in, to even do rescue drive-bys. Whereas if we have a rotary wing that's coming in, that's actually active firefighting and helping us out with some of the targets to keep it down so we can stay in there and continue working. So it's more defensive versus offensive. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's sort of the way I look at it.
So Chad, just to add to that, so it's understanding the tools that we have in our fixed wing fleet. So with regards to the red stuff coming out of the heavier machines, we also have a fleet of 802s that are on pontoons that will deliver water very close within the interface. So that's a tool that we've got in our arsenal that is very efficient in an interface scenario. Whereas you're right, with the larger machines that we have, fixed wings with retardant, and a little tough to get in real tight. And the other thing to note and remember when you're asking for air tankers is we don't drop on structures. That's right. Whether it's fixed wing or whether it's rotor wing. So, in proximity, yes, but right on, we're never going to do that. Well, I shouldn't say never.
Yeah. Not intentionally.
Unintentionally, it might happen, but generally speaking, just know the tools, and if you don't know, just ask.
Yeah.
Is there a fleet of 802s available with pontoons? And we can make that request.
And we're fortunate in this valley because we get them very quickly, and they pound a ton of water down in a very short amount of time, and they're close by. So I think for us, it's in this valley specifically, or if you have a base close by, is if you call them early, they're going to come out and determine whether or not they can make those drops or not, and they'll pick the right resource for the job.
Yeah, and ask the experts. I mean,
Yeah.
The bird dog officers.
Yeah.
You can ask for just to have them come out and do a recce.
Yeah.
Give us a quick assessment of what's going on, and then they'll make a determination about what's the best tool in their arsenal to bring out to help you.
Yeah. Thanks, Kim.
Yeah, so the key I think for engine bosses, again, you're not likely ever going to be talking to air in your capacity as an engine boss, but it's a safety component of operating around the air and knowing what they can do and what they can't do.
Brent, quick question. If you do find yourself in a situation where you can't get out of the way in time, is there something, I thought we were taught back in the day how to position ourselves or get in a position to be as safe as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let the experts chime in. And what my experience, I mean, if a helicopter's dumping a bucket, you don't want to be below because the debris will roll down towards you. Obviously, you don't want to be in the way of an air tanker. Get behind a large object if possible. Get out of the way. Guys, anything else you can add on that one? Joel?
Just for the most part, working with fire department when we're on fires, they're not going to drop if they can see you guys are there. They'll get a hold of one of us who will be asked to go and find you guys, or we'll make sure we're on silver or whatever channels you guys are on.
Yeah.
So they'll tell you guys to get out of the way. They will not drop on you or try to drop on you guys. But that's one of the biggest things that I've had in the 20-something years I've been here is before they drop, coming and saying, can you get that fire department there in that truck to back off, which is fair.
Yeah.
Or can you get them to switch to silver so they can talk to them? So the chances are they're not going to drop on you, but they're going to contact us first to get you guys out of there. So yeah.
And you know, for an engine boss working on the ground there, you need to be, we'll talk about situational awareness. Like you need to know where you are at all times and where your crew is in relation to those overhead assets. Absolutely. And something that Chad and I have noticed too, just on the various, like working again in the interface, a lot of departments are going to the two-piece Nomexes. We recommend definitely going with a brighter top. It's just, it's easier for air to see. Some of the other colors look really cool, but they don't really stand out so well. From a safety perspective, but just something to keep in mind if you're looking to upgrade your PPE.
If your department's close to the border, just be aware orange. If that's an inmate crew color, so you might have someone think you sprung the line and they're going to drag you back over. So if you are choosing to go with a different color, perhaps orange around the border is not the correct one.
Definitely not orange coveralls.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of individual firefighter safety then, we're down to that crew boss level, right? That engine company, the 4 people on board. So the key then is you want to be able to accomplish your task. We're there to fight fires, we're there for a reason. We want to do it aggressively, but we got to do it safely. And really, I mean, I could spend days talking about all the finer points of safety, and it's all super valid. We got to keep this condensed into a fairly, 40-minute presentation. So I'm going to skim over a lot of this stuff. But again, I think if you could really distill it down, at least from the perspective of an engine boss, it's maintaining what's called your SA, situational awareness. Does anybody have any, it came from the military. I was in the military. I mean, we talked about this years and years ago, and I'm sure, it's been around for a long time. But can anybody kind of give me an idea, what does that mean? And again, we're talking engine bosses here. What does situational awareness mean to the boots on the ground, to use that phrase? What is it? What is situational awareness? Any thoughts? Lou?
Situational awareness, I think about the environment that we're in, and we talk about WTF, the weather, the topography, and the fire behavior, right? And the fuel that we're in and amongst. So being aware of that, because we may operate in one neighborhood one day, and that may be interface and then intermix the next day. So being constantly aware of that and any weather changes. If you're out there in the field and you haven't smelled smoke all day because of the way the wind's blowing, and all of the, things change and we're smelling smoke now, maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe it's time to pick your head up and maybe go for a drive down the road to see what's going on around the corner kind of thing, right? It's being aware of that. A lot of times when our firefighters on the crew, they're doing all the tactical stuff, so their field of view is very small. They're looking at hose, shovels, stuff like that. And as a crew boss, I think that's why it's really imperative that you're the first safety officer for that crew.
Right.
And you need to have your head up and see what's going on. Sometimes that means leaving that crew for a moment to drive up the road or get on the radio and ask what's with that column of smoke we see down the road.
Yeah.
So that you are the situational awareness leader for that crew.
Absolutely, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
And again, I'd add into that too, that it's up to you to transmit. Situational awareness is taking information in, it's also pushing the information out and constantly updating it throughout the day, especially as you get into the peak burn period. So we'll talk a little bit more about situational awareness here as we go through the presentation. Just for those of you that are interested, I mean, again, this wealth of information here. I mean, situational awareness, looking on page XI in the whites at the beginning of the IRPG, it gives factors, barriers to situational awareness. I mean, it goes through it. Again, these are the kinds of things that if you have downtime in your engine, or you're sitting in camp at night, dry camp, I mean, your rigs are put away, review this stuff and think about it as a leader. I mean, things like even hazardous attitudes. Like, anti-authority, macho, invulnerable. Like, as we're structural fire, do we see this in the departments? We all know the personality types. Absolutely. So how does that impact how you're going to do your job the next day? Again, just things to think about, okay? So we talk a lot about the 10 and 18s. And I know we've all been in courses where people reference them like, yeah, know your 10 and 18s. Like, but I want to really flesh this out because 10 and 18s are so fundamental to safety. They're so fundamental to your ongoing assessment and awareness of your situational awareness. And the reality is that they're on the back of the IRPG. The reality is that these standard firefighting orders, of which there's 10 and 18 watch-out situations, these were developed based on firefighter fatalities, like real deal fatalities. The first 10 were developed after the Man Gulch fire in 1949. Basically, if you look at these standard firefighting orders, any one of these orders that's violated, they're absolute. They're not meant to be like, okay, yeah, well, we don't know what the fire's doing at all time, but that's okay. Okay, these are absolute orders based on fatalities. Again, I think they looked at 79 fatal fires, or 16 fires, 79 firefighter deaths that came up with these 10 orders. So it's really written in blood, unfortunately. But these orders are non-negotiable, the first 10, and if you find yourself in a position, whatever level you're at in the wildfire, if one of these orders is being violated, you gotta back out, okay? You gotta go to your safety zone, regroup, reassess, and then potentially redeploy or not. But you have to do something. And again, just looking at them, like they're basic, but actually think about it. And I wanna like spend more time on them than just passing. Keep informed on fire weather conditions and forecasts. Lou already said it. What's the main driver of fire behavior, do you think? Yeah, well, wind, like weather conditions, right? Okay. Know what your fire is doing at all times. So every tragedy fire, I read a lot of these books, like you can buy them on like South Canyon Fire 1994, Man Gulch, there's a book on. These are very thick books and they're a wealth of information. I really encourage you guys to read them if you can. I mean, back to that Man Gulch where this all comes from, there was 13 firefighters killed in that. They were in like, you can go through this, you'll see what are the commonalities of tragedy fires. It's like not what you think. It's not the big rank sixers that are ripping through that the whole world knows are super dangerous. It's the little flashy ones. I think there's 5 factors, like light fuels, fire looked unassuming, weather was calm, then a sudden change in weather, turbulence created by aircraft, whatever it is. But these are things like we're complacency. And if you're out there for 14 days, like the chief said, working the line for 14 days, like think about how, hey, yeah, it's a little rank too and some grass, whatever, big deal. Well, that's what unfortunately kills people. Okay, so know what the fire is doing at all times. That, in my studies, based on the Lessons Learned Center and the books I've read, that is always one that comes up, knowing what the fire is doing at all times. In fact, at the South Canyon Fire in 1994 in Colorado killed 13 firefighters, 14 actually. They found in the study that 8 of the 10 standing orders were violated and 12 of the 18 watchouts. Okay, so again, these aren't just something to look at, these are serious things. So base all actions on current and expected fire behavior. Again, back to situational awareness, we'll talk a little bit about this. Identify escape routes and safety zones and make them known. Okay, think about that one for a second. This is your basic laces, we'll get into that in just a second. But as a leader, you're the lowest level tactical leader in the formation, you have to make them known. Okay, how do you make them known? You can drive them, and we'll do this on day 2. You actually physically drive them if you can before you deploy. You flag them, and don't just use like, you know, a single strand of pink tape that's on every tree or whatever, like someone's out spaced or whatever. Flag it in a way that your crew knows and everybody else in your task force knows. Okay, so it means something to everybody. You gotta communicate this out. And again, it may change in the course of the day. Escape routes become untenable, safety zones shift or change, become untenable, constant change. Post lookouts, where there's possible danger. Okay, again, right back to the basics of laces. We'll get into this in more detail. It can be more of a challenge in a really like dedicated interface area, but lookouts. Be alert, keep calm, think clearly, act decisively. That sounds like, yeah, got that one. But guess what? What happened at Garnell Fire? That everybody's seen that movie, Only the Brave, whatever? Did it look like everybody's calm there? Or how about the South Canyon Fire when like people actually like, we used to call them combat refusals in the Army, like people actually shut down because they're overwhelmed. It's a natural human reaction to stress, okay? They lose their capacity to think. And in the absence of firm leadership, things are gonna go to shit real fast. And unfortunately, that's what happened there as well.